My people, I want to talk to you about preserving our families. Preserving our families in times of emergency and crisis and challenge, but also through the best of times and through generations to come. I've been reading this very fascinating book and beginning to implement it in my own family, and I'd like to invite other families into this conversation of how do we preserve our families, these beautiful people that we love, and the relationships between us, and the spiritual, intellectual, and material wealth that we earn and gain over time, and let that be passed on from generation to generation so that our families can continue to be benefits to each other and benefits to the world around us. So the book Family Wealth by James E. Hughes Jr. was written 25 years ago. And James E. Hughes is someone who is basically working with the wealthiest families to help them create plans to save their wealth over 3 generations. So it's 4 generations beyond. And the thing is, there's an old proverb that it talks about that exists across cultures, all over cultures. They have this proverb, which is basically that every 3 generations, all the wealth is gone. So you have one generation that earns the wealth, and this could be human capital, right? So just the relationships that we're together, right? Like there's 7 of us and we all get along and we operate as a unit and we love each other and we're healthy and we're alive and we're not dying and sick, right? The second is intellectual capital, which is knowledge, which is spiritual knowledge. It can be intellectual knowledge, career knowledge, how to run a business, how to manage money, how to stay together, how to maintain our values over time, right? And those are the 2 most important ones. And then there's financial capital, which is really just a tool for intellectual and human capital. So it talks about these 3 types of capital, and that the first generation will gain it. The second generation is like, wow, I really appreciate that, mom and dad. Let me try and sustain it. The third generation is like, yeah, I mean, this is just the way it is. Like, I'm just going to take this for granted and then kind of just spend it. And then by the 4th generation, there's kind of none left and they're starting over again. And so this cycle you can see again and again. I want you to take a moment and think about your own life and think about, which generation am I? Am I the first generation? Am I the second? Do I have a grandfather who kind of, helped get my family off the village, or immigrated into this country, or first started a business and then my parents got some good degrees, or maybe it was my parents and my dad, or maybe I come from poverty and I'm the first one to make something out of myself, but I'm the first generation. Whatever it is, this book offers some amazing tools that I'm going to go through with you in this video and some others, and in some conversations that we can have to actually apply these. For example, having a family mission statement to raise the children in the next generations with a sense of purpose and meaning and a set of values of like, this is what it means to be a part of this family. This is what we value. This is what makes us different. This is what makes us special. This is how you know who you are, and you can differentiate yourself from everyone else, not in a way of like, trying to create distance, but to like, there's a lot of toxic things about the culture around us. I don't even need to say very much about it. And so when you have a sense of identity, you know that I'm a part of this family and we have certain values, that's a shield and a protection for you. Maybe those values come from your faith, right? For me, it's going to be the values of Islam that I want to instill in my family. Maybe it's from the values of your culture, right? Those are also very important to me and to my family as well, but maybe it can be something else for you. Whatever it is, what is it that we create that sense of who we are? And the heart of that mission statement is essentially to support the flourishing of each individual in the family. Now, James E. Hughes talks about the pursuit of happiness of each individual. I personally think the pursuit of happiness is a very kind of American dream way of viewing it, and that happiness is a feeling, not really something that you can achieve, so to speak. So I like to think of it as like the flourishing, the spiritual and purpose manifestation of the highest level of that person in their life. And that's what we want for our children. That's what we want for our siblings. That's what we want for our families, our cousins, and also for our friends. And I'm going to talk in future videos about how we bring our families together into clans. Historically, families come together and they create clans, and clans to come together and they create tribes. And this is how it's been for almost all of human history. It's people who start to unite their energies, their resources, their missions together to support one another. So you want to create a family mission statement. It talks about the annual family meeting where we tell the family stories and we really reinstill the sense of who we are, and we restate the mission. And we imbue the young generation and ourselves with this feeling of what it means to be a part of this family. Also, that family annual meeting can be a time to do rituals. Certain rituals like rites of passage and initiation. For example, when young people reach puberty, or when someone comes of age and now it's time for them to be an elder. Whatever those rituals and rites of passage, maybe someone has graduated and we're just all going to acknowledge that person and give them a chance to share what was that journey like for you? What's it like now that you're coming back on the other side of that journey, that challenge, whatever you want. Maybe someone was sick and they dealt through cancer, and we've never just sat down as a family to talk about like, what was that like for you and what was that like for us, and let's have a ritual to just honor this huge initiation and this huge gauntlet that we've all been through together, so it can make us stronger and reinforce our bonds, because blood is so important. The family, this is something that's so important in this society. It's not going to happen on accident, right? That's the other thing, is that so many of us are dealing with this American civilization and generation where, our families come from villages, communities, and cultures where everyone lives on the same block, and maybe, your grandma's in the house and everyone's living together. And so this stuff happened naturally. Our cultures naturally do these things, and we have to recreate these things in this modern, neoliberal, post-colonial society in order to maintain our families and what it means to be us. So those are some of the kind of tools. There are also financial tools. Whatever means your family has, maybe it's $100, maybe it's $10,000. But when someone turns 10, you actually make the children write a proposal, a grant proposal, and the elders, the grandparents, write a grant for some kind of charitable activity that the young people want to do. So like maybe they want to, help clean up the sidewalk in their neighborhood, or maybe they want to help a community in the back home where we immigrated from. But that money is donated to the young generation. They have to create a proposal of what they're going to do with the money. That proposal is then presented to the family in the family meeting. It's then critiqued, given feedback, and they learn how to make a plan, run a project, execute a project. And that can be helpful for them, whatever their mission ends up being. They don't need to become a financial advisor, or a philanthropist, or a business person. They could be an artist, but they need to know how to make a plan, execute on a plan, take resources, utilize those resources, and lead something, right? And so that was just so inspiring to me. That's the kind of thing I definitely want to do with my children and with the young people in my life. In the future videos and in future conversations, we're going to be talking about some of these tools. The second side of preserving your family, though, sometimes we think about the future, sometimes we think about the ways that things could go wrong. I'm going to get right to it. What happens in an emergency? I mean, Iran and Israel are going at it, and Bibi Netanyahu and the Ayatollah, they both seem to want this fight. I mean, it's a scary thing. Talking about, what if we went to war? And I'm not here to try to be alarmist, but I know that for me as a father, I feel that I have a right. My family has rights upon me. My children have rights upon me, and my wife has rights upon me, and my closer family, who maybe see me as the eldest son or a leader in our family, they have rights upon me to try to just prepare to make sure that I can take care of them and protect them when things go wrong, right? And that doesn't mean that we're becoming doomsday, just always looking for the worst thing that could happen. But it's not even necessarily a war. It could be, look at the fires. Here in California, the California fires, so many people never would have expected that. Earthquakes happen, hurricanes, all these environmental challenges that are coming. You just never know. Economic downturn. So each family should have a plan, right? We should not be afraid to talk about, what if things go wrong? My family's from Sudan, okay? None of us expected this war to break out and for everything to go sideways. My grandmother and my auntie who was there, she had just gotten there a couple of days ago. She's escaping in the back of a truck, getting injuries, bouncing around, hurting her neck. Now she's crossing the water in a boat trying to get to Saudi Arabia. It was terrifying. There's bullets flying. This happens. You could be on a trip. You don't know what could happen. In that situation, unfortunately, all of our family's wealth was in the banks, in Sudan. Just thinking, it's in the bank, it's safe. A lot of jewelry that was passed on from generations and generations. There was no emergency plan. Everything was left. The paperwork, there was no plan of when something goes wrong, do we have a bag that we can put on and it has some cash and it has our passports and it has some things ready and we can get around and make moves. It has some of the most important family documents and heirlooms, whatever it might be. We want to talk about what does it mean without creating a sense of stress, unbearable stress in your life, to just be prepared for anything that might happen. And we'll talk about, what does it mean to be prepared for a 72-hour situation. It's okay, we're going to get from point A to point B. There's a fire, a smoke, there's whatever it is that's happening nearby, an earthquake, and I need to get to a safe place till I can come back here again, right? And so I have 72 hours worth of supplies, maybe a radio, things like that. So I'll be sharing some checklists and things like that. And then also to talk about just having your family be ready, fitness, having a plan of where would we meet if situations go, who are we gonna defer the leadership to in that moment? Who are we gonna be all right, let's look to you in this moment, and what are our agreements? How are we gonna make decisions in situations like that? We'll talk about the concept of shura, Shura is basically this form of council that takes everyone's opinions and it values the opinions of elders and children and women and men and everyone and makes sure that everyone is heard. And it's kind of a republic form where then if you go up a level and maybe it's multiple groups, then there's one representative from each group and they have a council and they come back. It's actually interesting because it's in the Old Testament as well as in the Quran. And then you can also look at what happens when it's like a crisis situation. It's like we don't have time to talk, and like we need to give the decision like kind of like the general. Like this person's kind of like, all right, this is what we're gonna do. And then once we're safe again, that person takes that kind of executive power and shares it back into the council again. So these are all things that we want to have in place. We want to have the material readiness. You also want to have financial readiness, right? I mean, is your savings and situation, is it prepared for runaway inflation, right? The economy is looking very unpredictable. China, Russia, India, the BRICS nations, they have kind of prepared for creating their own, the dollar. We don't know what the future of it's going to be. Maybe it's time to hedge some of your wealth in gold and in silver. You don't need to have a stash of gold. There are tools and situations where you can actually have a bank account and they hold the gold for you in like Liechtenstein and the Cayman Islands or whatever it is. And it's basically a normal, like your bank account, but instead of having cash, they just have gold. And then you can do your transactions in gold or silver or whatever it might be. And so there are different solutions like that. Maybe you have some crypto. Maybe you're just diversifying so that if the dollar crashes, then you have your Bitcoin. If your Bitcoin crashes, then you have your gold and your dollar and whatever it might be. We want to have these conversations. And what I would like to envision is that when a group of families all have these conversations internally, right, and the head of the family is kind of like guiding and encouraging these conversations and making sure that we actually do this, we actually get the stuff that we need, we actually make the plans, then each of those families are ready and those families can come together and we can create a clan. We can create a mutual preparedness plan. It's like, okay, well, if stuff hits the fan, right, and my home is like right in ground zero of wherever it is that's going on, right, can I come to you? And if your home is where things are going on, can you come to me? Right? And I know that when you come to me, you're going to have a bag full of some silver coins and some water and purifiers and food and snacks and radio and some tools and whatever it is. So you're not coming empty-handed. And now we got more resources together, right? And you're going to be coming with certain skills and information and abilities that you have because you've been preparing and your family's been preparing. And so now we're all better off, right? I mean, God forbid if we ever are in a situation where we really need to fend for ourselves, right? I mean, look at Hurricane Katrina. Look at COVID. This is not like unrealistic situation, This is not like an impossible situation, right? Things happen. Like New Orleans took a long time to get back to it, and the government took a very long time to respond, right? So it doesn't need to be World War III for you to find yourself in a situation where you need to take care of each other and take care of yourself. If every family is ready, and then we come together, we're all more ready. And if you do really need to take care of yourself, sometimes it's like, okay, well, we just need to take care of ourselves, just me and my kids, right? But it's like, okay, that's 2 adults and like 1, 2, 3, 4 children or whatever it is. Like when things, like it's actually not necessarily easier. In fact, there's a lot of anthropological studies that have found that groups of 25 to 150, that's actually like survival size of groups. So if you can get 5 families or 6, 7 families and get a number of 25 together and you're all cooperating and then you've got all of those resources pulled together, that's when you really are powerful, right? And it's also like, again, God forbid, you're less of a target if you're moving as a group and you're kind of united in that way because, a small group is easier to pick on than a large group, right? And there's more men in a larger group that, maybe can defend the children and the women if that kind of situation happens. These are conversations that are going to be continuing on. It's important that we have these conversations for the sake of our children and our families. It's important that we have these conversations as communities because, again, when things go down, do we really want to rely on this government to take care of us? This is who's going to save us? Like, come on now. Come on now. So, more to come. Thank you for tuning in and be well.